These are Sunman's powers. And so anyway, so this is sort of the beginning. But the contemporary manifestations of this kind of Egyptological kind of phenomena in Afrocentricity, with Egypt being sort of the seat of African American sort of cultural power, the Africa Bambaataa is the heir apparent to Sun Ra now with his universal Zulu nation. And this is an image of Africa Bambaataa. Not only how many people watch VH1, but just about 3 weeks or so ago, they had the VH1 honors program, of which Africa Bambaataa was one of the honorees. And so Africa Bambaataa arrives to the program in full regalia. Where you have this really sort of interesting kind of hybridized thing. So it takes it way out. This is like, and it's not like, George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic sort of adopts a kind of a profile that's like this too, except the difference between, there's nothing absurd about Africa Bambaataa. I mean, this is not a send-up of futurism. It's not a send-up of the kind of Zulu nation kind of as a kind of a primitive, as kind of a masquerade. This has some depth to it that goes way beyond just a performative sort of aspect of his life, and it infuses a whole series of aspects of Bambaataa's and the Zulu nation's relationship to hip-hop culture. And so this is just another manifestation of Bambaataa and Zulu nation. But what I was saying about the comic book superheroes and figurines like Sunman is that during the 80s, the late 70s, early 80s, a series of comic book companies also tried to come into existence to do that same thing, to generate a series of African-based, Afrocentric heroes for the comic book industry, for black kids to be able to attach themselves to. And there was a company, Anaya was one of the first companies to come on the scene. And this is one of the characters Anaya produced. I have an image of another one that will come up later on. But Kiru, the son of Bath, is one of the characters. We have Mengu, is another comic. This is actually more recent than the Hero comic. But you see kind of evidence of this kind of use of the Egyptian as a motif, so as a recurring theme in a lot of works of Afrocentric African American popular culture. And then you have the saga of Original Man. And what you will find is that in Afrocentric philosophy, everything is aimed at having black people return themselves to their original condition pre-European invasion of Africa. And in all of these heroes, the goal, as had been the goal of the Nation of Islam, as had been in some ways Marcus Garvey's goal with the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the goal is to get black people out of the mindset where they've been, out of the subjugated mindset of sort of European domination, and into a mindset where they recognize themselves as being the original people of the world, the original civilizations of the world. And that if we sort of reorient our thinking towards those original concepts of being that came out of Africa, then that would be the mechanism by which African Americans would overthrow the regimes of white supremacy, and then the world would come into its right sort of order again. And so in books like Original Man, their struggle it's against all the scourges of the black community, basically. It's against the drugs, it's against the gang violence, it's against the murder, rob, all of that stuff. Those are the things they fight against. So that's Original Man. We're at Malcolm 10. glasses remind me of Cheryl with the glasses. I was reading from Sun Ra. And you see that Malcolm 10, his mission also is the cleansing of New Africa. And then, of course, the liberator. And ebony warrior. But I think what we can see from David Walker's appeal, his writings, from Diop's writings in Civilization and Barbarism, from Francis Cress Welsing's writings in the ISIS paper, from Molefi Asante's writings in Afrocentricity, from Africa Bamba's approach to the Zulu nation, Universal Zulu Nation, and from the work of a lot of comics artists where the idea of sort of heroism and sort of salvation sort of is the dominant theme, that this kind of liberation philosophy that Sun Ra represents is not some carnivalesque sort of performance, but it actually has a very deep sort of psychological resonance in a lot of areas of the Black community. And the struggle that David Walker sort of articulated in 1829 is not far from the struggle that Malcolm has articulated. It's still not far from the struggle that, as is defined by Louis Farrakhan and a host of other people who are still parts of the much larger Afrocentric community. So that's where I'm going to end. Oh, no, not. Anyway, this is one other, the faction, who in that text of the panel, which he describes essentially the same mission that Malcolm 10 had, which is in a sense to set the world right for Black people by sort of overturning all of the regimes of sort of dominance, regimes of oppression, and put Black people in their rightful place as leaders in the world. Thanks.